I'm at 6341 Marshall Road in Washington Township doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues mainly, anything that would be of concern to the buyer. Our access point is an outside clean out in the front of the house. I'm going to show you, here is the actual access point, and if you look up there is the front door and the right side of the house there. So you can see right directly, like centered right underneath this window here. This is cast iron. This is also a sweet clean out, I believe, which just means that it'll force you to go downstream, which would, out towards the main. And so we won't be able to inspect the little bit of line under the floor in the house. This is just, restricts the access to the exterior. Most of the time that's where you find issues on these, but the main thing I do want to always mention is it is cast iron on the interior. Cast iron is obviously it does rust, so it never looks really good, especially not from late 60s. It's old enough. We may have to run some water here, because sometimes when you go right in like that, you kind of hit the camera right on the bottom of the pipe, and it gets a bunch of stuff on the lens there. And so we'll probably have to run a little bit of water on the inside to rinse this camera off. But I'm going to try to pull it out first, and then I'll try to wipe it off, and then we'll go back in. But what I was mentioning about the cast iron thing is just that it does, it's pretty ugly. A lot of times you can't really tell how much life is left in a cast iron pipe just because it rusts. But the main thing is that it is more, soft clogs are a lot more prevalent with cast iron, and that's just like, excess toilet paper, things that, yeah, we're going to have to run some water here. Excess toilet paper, wet wipes are a big no-no, even more so. I mean, they are in general, but even more so in cast iron, even if they say flushable, because of how rough the interior of the pipe can get with the rust. They can catch wet wipes and cause soft clogs, which is just, it's easily removable, but it's just like a buildup of toilet paper and stuff. And toilet paper is designed to disintegrate, so it will, if it does get caught, it most of the time will, when it's underwater for a minute, it'll break down, soften up, and just break into nothing or disintegrate. Wet wipes won't do that, so they have a tendency to be a little bit bigger problem in cast iron. So it's not a big deal. It's just something to make sure you're not flushing anything you shouldn't down the sewer line. So the first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to go in and run some water in the bathroom, and we'll see if we can get this get the camera head cleaned off, and that way we can see what's going on. Okay, we got the line, or the camera cleaned off. I'm going to leave the water running unless it obstructs the view at all, but you can see we're right here at the base of the stack. And then we switch over immediately to clay. This is normal material for the age of the house. And the most common thing we see with clay lines is root intrusion. It's at least 3/4 of, I think about 3/4 or more of the clay lines that are inspected have a little bit of root intrusion. They tend to plant trees right on top of the sewer lines. And with the the short sections, if you notice, the clay lines have 3-foot sections of pipe, so there's a lot of connections, and nothing a tree likes more than fertilizer and water all in one place. So it's not uncommon to find some root intrusion. But what we're looking for mostly in these situations is just structural integrity, making sure that, you know, there's no structural damage to the pipe. And so you'll see just a hair, a couple little hairs of root intrusion there. That's not any concern. That was such a small amount that you couldn't even treat it at this point. So far, this line looks really good.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
So far, yeah, the line looks great structurally. I haven't even seen any longitudinal cracks or radial cracks. So it looks really good. Right about 75 feet, and then once we get through this part here, it looks like just a little belly, but it's exaggerated because we actually have the water running right now. The camera lens is only maybe a half an inch off the bottom of the pipe, so it doesn't take much. You can see the water level there is still pretty low. But it doesn't take much for it to cover the lens. So what we'll do is we'll go all the way out. We'll make sure that the lens is clean, and then when we come back through that 75-foot area in reverse, you should be able to tell that and see the line better once it drops. But so far the line is looking really good. Based off of the footage, though, I would think we would have to be at the main here soon. We're out over 100 feet. So that means that the sewer main would have to be up in the yard across the street based off of this footage. Be getting really close to the main here. Wish we could be coming in right at the flow line, and so it would obstruct the view. And that's kind of what it seems like, because I'm up against something. There we are. Yeah, I was just up against the opposite side of the main. So we do have some root intrusion here right at the tap. Good news for the owner is any kind of structural issues at this point would be the responsibility of the municipality. But I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to locate this. I don't think the municipality will come out and clean roots, but it is something that the homeowner most likely will have to maintenance. But if there's any structural issues found, that would be on the municipality, and they would have to repair this. This is actually at the tap, so where they tap the sewer main that runs down the street, this is that connection, and so that connection is the responsibility of the, like I mentioned, the sewer department. And so I'm going to pause the video. We're going to locate this just to know whether it's on this side of the street or the opposite. It pretty much has to be based off the footage, but we want to know exactly where this is. So again, pausing the video for locate. Okay, so we've located this, and the main is like 15 feet, 14 feet into the yard. So it's 15 feet, or, well, 14 feet from the curb into the yard across the street. If you look down a couple houses across the street, you'll actually see a manhole in the front yard. And so it's pretty far up there. So these roots are being caused by the trees across the street and getting in right at the tap. So you could contact the municipality and see if they will do anything about this, but I believe that it's most likely going to be the responsibility of the homeowner. This is not a big deal, like I mentioned earlier. It's pretty common due to, I would say that if you talk to the neighbors, probably most of them, if not all of them, have dealt with root intrusion at some point in the ownership of their homes, and so it's not uncommon at all. And so they'll there's a couple different ways you can treat this. You can get it cleaned every few years. If done well, you can easily get 3 to 5 years out of a cleaning. But in the meantime, in between those, or as a precautionary measure, you can use they call Root-X. It's a chemical you could put down. It calls for it about once a year, and it basically is like a foaming agent that runs down. The foam is supposed to catch on the roots and burn them back or keep them from growing. And the hard part about this is that you're 130 feet, almost from the access point, over that from a toilet or something. And so, to maintain this, you do want to maybe try to put that down. It costs about maybe $40, I think, for a bottle of the Root-X. And so that could be put down once a year, and then I would have it scoped again in about 3 to 5 years, just to check for the root intrusion and to see. You could also, like I mentioned, contact the sewer department and see. I'm not sure, most of the time they don't do maintenance like this on the roots, but they do own that tap, and so that connection they may end up doing that on their own. They may end up actually being the one to clean that, but in most areas they won't clean it. They'll just fix any structural repairs. But at any rate, not a big issue, not an issue at all really. It's very, very common, like I said, and the only spot is right around here, which is on the other side of the street. So 124 to 127. There's a little bit of roots there. This is barely in the flow line. The other one at the tap is just a little more concerning. It's not an immediate thing, or you would need to do it before you take an occupancy, but I would do it pretty soon, just to be sure that they're not either a jetting or a cleaning, just to be sure that they are, that the roots aren't too bad. That's just some toilet paper and stuff. The house is empty, so you just want to. So the water level, now that the water's not running, so 124 to 127, I believe that's all the roots, and it's from the trees across the street. And so not really much you can do about it as far as even taking the trees out of the equation. So based off the way it pushed out like this, there's like a little tiny bit of evidence on the sides, but yeah, 124 feet to 127 feet, which is across the street, and that's where all the mature trees are. That was the only spot we saw root intrusion. So the rest of the line, and well, the entire line looks great structurally. It's like I mentioned earlier though, with so many seams, usually what happens is over the years the packing they use around the line, which is like for this age may have been like a mortar. A lot of times this stuff shrinks over the years, and then it'll starts allowing little finger roots in. As long as you keep them at bay, they don't cause any structural issues. It's when you let them get really big. There are permanent solutions to root intrusion, which would be like lining or just flat out replacing the line. Those two things are pretty expensive and usually not necessary as long as you perform regular maintenance. A lot of people do it just so that they don't have to worry about it. But this kind of regular maintenance on sewer lines has been common for quite a long time. But yeah, structurally this clay line looks really good. Everything has held shape. All the joints are nice and tight. There is a new tree sitting right here in the front, so it's another reason to have a scope done in a few years and just make sure that this tree, as it matures, doesn't start getting into the sewer line. Looks like it's going to take a few years. It's pretty small, but should be coming back into the cast iron here. There we go. And if this is any indication of the shape of the cast iron on the inside, it still looks pretty good. This looks like it's holding shape. There's not a big channel taken out of the bottom of the pipe, which is a good sign. But again, we're unable to we're unable to inspect the interior cast iron just due to lack of access, and this clean out forces us to go downstream only, so we can't go back into the house. Again, the bathrooms are just perfectly in line with this, and so you might have another 25 feet of pipe on the inside, but usually, like I mentioned, those are things with cast iron you just want to make sure that you're not flushing anything you shouldn't down there, which shouldn't be a problem. If you want to use those wet wipes, just throw them in the trash instead of down the toilet, and it'll make life a lot easier for the sewer line. But so the line from the house out to the street looked great structurally. We just had a little bit of roots in between 124 feet and 127 feet, which is actually off the property and across the street up in the yard there. So it most likely is the full responsibility of the homeowner to take care of the roots, but if there were any structural issues, you would call the municipality, and you can call and ask them if they will do cleanings. They usually won't unless there's an active backup, and so if there's not an active backup, they usually aren't concerned with it, but it just kind of depends on the municipality and the situation. So other than that, the line looked great. Just going to have to maintenance that little bit of roots periodically, just to be sure that that doesn't cause any blockages in the future. But structurally the line looked great. So That'll end the inspection at 6341 Marshall Road in Washington Township, Ohio.